All right. We are now live with Lisa Downs, and she's going to talk to us all about what's next, career moves for 40 plus. And we are ready to go. Lisa, if you're good, you're still here with us. We've got hands clapping.
I'm still here. Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, can hear you great. We are ready to go.
Excellent.
And I'll kick it over to you, Lisa.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thank you so much for being here and joining the session today. So I'm Lisa Downs. I'm a career and retirement transition coach. And though much of my career has been spent in learning and development and leadership development over the years, I made my own career transition and am a corporate America refugee and went independent in my work in 2015. And now here have pivoted to supporting folks as they go through mid to late career transitions. So I focus on the 40 plus audience in my work. And so here to provide you with just some insights and tips that I hope is helpful for you today here in the session. And so really we're focused on, for those of you who are age 40 plus, just providing some food for thought and ideas for what you might be able to do next in your career, especially if you're considering making a change to perhaps a different type of work, different industry, or you're finding yourself in sudden job loss and aren't quite sure, where you want to take things next. So I'll dive in here by sharing just a bit about setting the stage. And I have the tagline here for the summit at the bottom about do not look for a job like the one you have. Look at the potential for the work you can do. And so really this is what it's about. This mid to late career phase is an excellent time to leverage our experience. So thinking about our rich experience that we all have and just leveraging that perhaps in a new or different way as part of our own journey through and beyond what we call our middle sense. So believe it or not, many of us who are in our 40s, 50s, we're actually in our middle sense. So just like when you think about adolescence, when it was a time of a lot of physical changes, hormonal, emotional changes, adolescence really being our doorway, our gateway from childhood into adulthood, we go through what's called middle sense in our 40s, 50s, where we're experiencing emotional, physical, hormonal changes, and really serves as our gateway, our doorway into our elderhood. And so, that concept of midlife crisis is actually real. It's not a myth because we're going through all of these different changes in our bodies with aging and that doorway leading into what can be a very enjoyable, joyful, fruitful elderhood if we allow it to be. So this is also an opportunity to create our future and really define who you are as a professional, embracing change, time of great change that we're all in now. And also ageism is real. And, if any of you have experienced it here, whether it comes to job search or job loss or just, messages, communications you've received in the workplace, interacting with people, it's all around us in terms of in our society, ageism and, jokes about aging and being over the hill and all this type of thing. And so my challenge to you too around that is to think about what are you going to do about it to combat stereotypes, because the stereotypes are prevalent. And is there anything in your own mind, so the voice that's in your head, the script that is running, where you are telling yourself that you're too old to do this or too old to do that? I'm here to tell you that that's nonsense. It's never too late. We're never too old. It's a matter of, finding what might be next for you and where you can channel your skills and your strengths and the learning that you've had in a new and exciting, potentially and different direction. My own brother-in-law, he didn't even start med school until he was well into his 40s. I know people who became business owners, franchise owners, entrepreneurs at age 65 and up, so we're never too old. And our lifespans are longer. So we have decades potentially to be around past traditional retirement age of 65. We can be looking at another 20 to 30 years of life going forward. So I really encourage you to think long term too, in terms of, whether you're in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, or beyond. What is it that you foresee doing, and what can you do to plan those decades in a way that excites you, energizes you, and keeps you hopping, right? And keeps you hopping and keeping the mind sharp as well. It's so important. So, just some ideas here to help get you thinking. And when it comes to career transition for age 40 plus, I employ with my work a 4-step process for mid to late career transition. And so this is something for you to consider in terms of steps along the way for a model. But as you see here at the bottom, underneath the steps, everything starts with asking the questions, who am I at my core? And who do I want to be in the world given my life and career to date? And so these steps are designed to really help you go through this process of career transition, age 40 and above, really hearkening to the work and honoring that you've done so far, as well as your life experiences that are so rich in terms of the experience that you've had, both professionally and personally. So, this first step is reframe. That's what I call it. And it's really about focusing on your identity. So, again, who are you at your core? What are your core values? What identifies you beyond your work? So, always like to think about the whole person. So, beyond just your work, who are you? What defines you? If you're not quite sure, I always propose that you ask people in your world, in your circle, the question, what do I provide to you? What do I provide to you? What do I give to you? In our relationship together, what is it that you get from me? And when you pose those types of questions, the answers you receive could be a bit surprising, intriguing, and really help point you in a direction to go next. So, who are you? And then what is your vision? So, when you envision your life in the next few decades, what does it look like? What are you doing? What do you see? What are the types of activities and people going on in your life? And then how does that translate to who you are in terms of your professional brand? So if you were to have a headline for who you are as a professional, what would it say? And that headline can then transfer over into when it comes time, if you're looking to job search again, can then transfer over into things like your resume, your LinkedIn profile, when you introduce yourself to someone. But, what is that headline for you that really translates into your brand? And then the second step here is resolve. So, resolving limiting beliefs and uncovering those, resolving fears that may be coming into play. Our fears are always with us, they don't go away. And so, what I encourage folks to do is think about how can you leverage your fear in a positive way? So how can it drive you and move you forward? And thinking about it in terms of something that can be an asset, not something that will prevent you from doing what you want to do. And then that leads to having resolve in terms of sticking to goals that you set. And then the third step here is what I call renew. And that's where you do have your concrete plan that includes preparation for your next phase and actions that you're going to take as part of your plan. Of course, as I'm sure many of you know, our plans don't have to be set in stone. So they can change, and that's okay. But the goal is that you've got something to aim for, that you've got a direction that you're going for, to aim for that can be kind of that north compass point. And then the last step here is what I call revisit. And that's where you review, your progress so far, review your plan. You assess in terms of, where am I at compared to where I want to be? What do I have going on? And where I might need to make some adjustments. So hopefully that all makes sense to you. And it is a nice kind of clean way to think about it methodically in terms of steps for making a mid to late career transition. So some ideas there for you. But let's get down to nuts and bolts and nitty gritty here. So I've got for you this list of my tips for age 40 plus career moves. And I'll chat about these. And again, it's really just to give you some ideas and food for thought here. So the first is to get creative with how you can apply your skills. So whether you're looking to work in a different area, type of work, changing industries compared to where you have been working, or different types of roles. When we think about the future of work, especially now, in the pandemic and post-pandemic, whenever we get through this, which will hopefully be sooner rather than later, workplaces, chances are going to look pretty different. And I don't know if you're familiar with the World Economic Forum, but they just came out with a Future of Jobs report this past October. So I encourage you to take a look at that. And they identify, the roles and industries and types of work that they foresee flourishing from now until the year 2025. And when you look at the roles, what you'll probably notice is that they are pretty broad. So things like project manager, program manager, roles that involve organizational development, consulting, things that can work across an organization. And so, also the Gartner Group, their recent report that came out last year that's about workplaces and time, post-COVID, they make the point too that more and more it's not going to be necessarily about the specific role that you're in and that you only work in this silo of this role, but it's more about what are your critical skills that can go across the organization, that can really be applied anywhere. So thinking a bit creatively about the skill set that you have and where could that be plugged in. Considering a portfolio career, and by that I mean potentially combining multiple roles into a cohesive plan. One of the other predictions is that work may not necessarily be about the traditional 8 to 5, Monday through Friday type of jobs. So it may be that your work life becomes more of looking like a portfolio of body of work. So taking more of a project-based standpoint, but thinking, can I do some consulting work here? Can I do a temporary job here? Maybe I work part-time over here. So you've got this portfolio approach to your career rather than necessarily thinking about the traditional, typical 8 to 5 full-time job with one employer. So just something to put a seed in there. Of course, leveraging your network, who can you ask for time to chat, who's been where you're looking to go, emphasizing examples of what you learned and when you learned something new that made an impact. There is this old stereotype out there, as you may have encountered, that, older people can't learn anything new, or we're not up to date with technology, or, your prime of your career has passed. When to me, those things are, my technical term is poppycock. So what are some examples that you can show where you have learned something new and you jumped in with both feet and you helped the organization achieve its goals and produce results? And show your tech savvy. Lots of different ways to do that, even if you're not currently employed. So, you can do things like post your own videos of tips and get them out there on social media. You can hop on Amazon and write book reviews for business books. You can write your own, of course, online articles and blog posts and leverage LinkedIn for articles, that type of thing. And you can also, post projects that showcase your use of tools and platforms. You may also want to have your own personal website. If you use a tool like Wix, something like that, it's pretty quick and easy to have your own website these days where you can post tools, information, project examples, but really to show you're tech savvy and to help combat that myth. Over here on the right, so being open to the idea that things can look different, as I mentioned. So whether that's part-time work, consulting, contract gigs, entrepreneurship, temporary work, sometimes we need to take something that's temporary to get to where we want to be so we can have the income, and that's okay. And even if you've been toying with the idea of perhaps going out on your own, having your own business, being an entrepreneur, you don't have to go it alone completely. Think about, are there partners, professionals, colleagues who you could partner with to launch something? Always a possibility. Of course, volunteering to keep your skills sharp until the next opportunity comes along. And then making the time to grieve what was. So, whether that is past jobs, people, or circumstances. And that goes hand in hand with the next one, that is to let go of old grudges, behavior patterns that don't serve you, or resentments. Sometimes when we've had a shock, and this time, especially, now with the pandemic, even if you haven't necessarily lost someone directly as a result of the pandemic, we've all lost things this past year. We lost our lives before the pandemic. Some of us have lost jobs. Some of us have lost the connection to colleagues and friends and relatives. And so we've all lost quite a bit. And have you taken the time to grieve that loss? And if you haven't, now could be a really good time to do that, because in the end, it will just help you move forward. Likewise, if there's some things that maybe you're still holding on to in terms of some resentments from past roles, or, you didn't get a role that you really wanted, or a promotion you didn't really wanted and didn't get, that's also an opportunity to see, how can I let go of the past and let go of those old resentments that might be preventing me from moving forward. And then the last one here is to adopt a mindset of being what it's called a modern elder. I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Chip Conley, but he helped launch Airbnb. And he has this great book about that references this phrase, being a modern elder. And he defines that phrase as being as wise as you are open to learning and change. So how can you be a modern elder as you move from your 40s into your 50s, into your 60s, your 70s, and beyond? So how can you stay active, engaged, and learning while also really applying your experience and your wisdom? So just something there to think about, and check out that book. I forget the main title of it, but the subtitle is The Making of a Modern Elder, but it's Chip Conley, and that's a great read too. And he talks about that concept of middle sense as well, to check that out. So cool. So that's the information I have. So questions. So Brandon, are there any questions that I can answer for folks?
All right, let me see. There's none in the Q&A, but a lot of people don't even know about the Q&A. So if you have questions, we do have a few extra minutes to throw them out at Lisa.
Yeah, we've got about 5 minutes here for questions or comments.
Yeah. Great stuff too. I love the middle sense. Is that how you referred to it, as the middle sense?
That's the middle sense, yep.
Can we get a copy of your slides? Some great tips in there. I know we are recording these for our YouTube channel, if it's okay that you allow us to present it in recorded format, but
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I do have my contact information here as well.
Oh, great.
So feel free to get in touch with me. So on the left-hand side, my LinkedIn profile link is just look for Lisa Downs. I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's my Twitter handle. My business is called New Aspect Coaching, and the site is actually yournewaspect.com. Facebook, I have a business page there. I also host a radio show here in the Seattle area. That's also a podcast. It's called Reigniting You, and you're welcome to check out the show. It's every Wednesday, 3 o'clock Pacific. You can live stream it or listen to the podcast. And then my email is there, phone. Happy if you'd like to contact me, I'm happy to send the slides. But otherwise, yeah, the YouTube recording is great.
So we do have a question. Is it okay to include your date of birth in the CV, or should we avoid that?
I would avoid that. So I would avoid that, and a couple other tips as well when it comes to your CV or resume is to only go back with work experience about no more than 15 years. So 10 to 15 years is the good rule of thumb. You also want to remove years off of education. Or certifications that are a bit long in the tooth, so to speak. So if it hasn't been just within the last couple years, remove the years, the dates from those items too.
We have another kind of a question, but maybe just a response from Diane. I've been on interviews and most companies don't want to pay for wisdom. How do you handle this? I'm at a point where I don't need to work for the money, and companies assume that I need to be paid what I use to earn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so what I always recommend is to really focus on the examples of how you can add value to the organization. So how can you help them get results more quickly? Since you may not need as much training as the young guns or newer folks coming into the field or into the business, how that can be an advantage, but really providing those concrete examples of when you can dive in with both feet and have produced results and how you can add value. And, how can you also contribute to bringing up the, up and coming folks? So how can you be in a role where you're helping to train them to get them up to speed, helping with their career and professional development as well, being a mentor. But it all comes down to how can you add value in a way that would resonate with them.
We have one other question about ageism from Allison. How do you deal with ageism in an interview without being confrontational? For example, when a 28-year-old hiring manager asks you if you are familiar with Excel.
Yeah, and so that's something where I wouldn't point it out in terms of, well, that sounds pretty ageist, or, why are you assuming I don't know about Excel? I would just share, yes, I am, and here's how I've used Excel and how I tend to use it in my work and how it helps me do what I need to do.
Fantastic. And then Erna, I believe, said, I could not request you on LinkedIn. I would like to follow you on it. Not sure what that means. Connect to you, maybe?
Oh, connect? Yeah. Yep. So just send me a connection request. Put in a note, please. So I typically don't connect with people who don't include a note if I don't know who you are or where you're from. Mm-hmm. So just mentioned, you saw my presentation here. So please add a note. That's a good rule of thumb for networking, by the way, too. Virtual networking, always include a note with your connection request, because you might run into folks like me who are picky about that.
Love Vicky's comment. Still here in L&D at 68.
Awesome.
And Diane saying, my mom opened her business at 57. She's 70 and still loves the work.
That's excellent. Yeah. Excellent. That's so cool to hear.
Yeah, it's fantastic. All right. Well, Lisa, we really do. It looks like that may be all the questions. We really do appreciate your presentation. It was fantastic. And again, thank you for the time and energy.
You bet.
This. It's greatly appreciated.
Absolutely.
We will see you next. We're going to have a summary of the day, and then we're opening the talent fair.
Cool.
At 3:30 and at 3:15, I believe 3:15, maybe 3:10, we start the day's summary. So again, Lisa, thank you so much. Very great.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks so much for joining and attending today. Feel free to reach out if there's any way at all that I can support you, or you just want to connect and say hello and swap stories. So thanks everyone. Thanks very much. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.